The media, though, is not interested in covering the threats that conservatives receive from progressives, that law-abiding gun owners receive from progressives. But they'll cover extensively an off-color quip from a pundit about the college prospects of a gun rights activist and pretend it's a crime against humanity. But genuine nonstop wishes for the death of law-abiding people who just want to protect their family, they're not interested. And that's because such coverage would upset their narratives. And the media works so hard to build and maintain these narratives. Here to talk about the way that the media has covered situations, this latest issue, but situations like it in service of a progressive agenda, is Brittany Hughes, managing editor at NRATV. Brittany, thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. You know, I was doing okay today before I logged onto Twitter and I read your Twitter feed. I've followed you for a long time. I think you are probably the target of some of the most vehement hatred I have ever seen. And that's saying something when it comes to Twitter. I'm telling you, it's awful.
Well, I've seen some really bad stuff, and it always seems as though with conservative women or law-abiding gun-owning women particularly, they seem to bear. I just noticed that we seem to get the brunt of it, and it's insane. And media they don't really pay so much attention to it. And with this story, before we even knew the particulars, we had media republishing tweets from people like Ted Lieu or Dick Durbin or Andrew Cuomo talking about how, well, it's the NRA agenda or it's gun owners, gun owners across America really are going to have to come to terms with some common sense. And then we find out, Brittany, that he was institutionalized twice on antipsychotics, illegally carried into Florida, and they have every gun control law under the sun. Nobody in the media is reporting that, though.
No, they're not. And I think this is kind of, this is a really interesting study in not only journalism in 2018, but in journalism going back a ways now. It has built to this point. I think first of all, one of the reasons why the media has not really picked up on this story, I think, is because they are way too busy trying to make Donald Trump look bad with the death of Senator McCain, which is tragic as it is. They're kind of pretending like they didn't spend all of 2008 calling the guy a racist and an Islamophobe. So they're very distracted over there. But I also think one of the reasons that they're not playing on this story is because it turned out that it was a handgun that this guy used. He was an absolute nut job. You don't just walk into a place and shoot it up because you lose a video game if you have all of your nuts and bolts. But it was a handgun. I guarantee you, had this been an AR-15 or one of the scary boogity guns that they like to go after, that would have been the narrative. It would have been the narrative for days, but they don't want to talk about it because you were exactly right. You said earlier, what are they going to do now? They're going to advocate to ban all handguns, all guns in general. We've been told by the left, of course we know it's not true, but we've been told by the left that the goal here is not to come after all of our guns. The goal is not to disarm all Americans. That's where they would have to go if they wanted to play on this particular narrative. I also think that it's a very interesting study in when the left chooses to politicize an issue and when they don't. I mean, you think about it, for the last entire week now, the right has been being told, don't you dare politicize the death of a young lady in Iowa at the hands of an illegal alien. Don't you dare talk about that. Don't you dare use her death to spout some political agenda. But the minute that a shooting happens, all of a sudden that's exactly what they do. They rush to politicize it. They rush to, you can't lump all illegal aliens in as criminals and murderers, but you sure as heck can lump 6 million NRA members in as criminals and murderers. I think we've been called terrorists now more times than I can count. We're domestic terrorists, in which case I say, go ahead, call the FBI and have us all arrested, see how that works out for you if you truly think that we're domestic terrorists. But again, it's this double standard. They're not even trying to hide it at this point. They're going to politicize a shooting when it fits their narrative. When it turns out that it's a handgun, well, the media is going to, kind of downplay it, not talk about it so much. I guarantee you the next time that they have a shooting that does fit their narrative, we will be right back here doing the same old thing, listening to the same old line, a whole lot of talking about how the NRA are murderers and terrorists, a whole lot of talking about how guns are bad, but not a single policy proposal regarding how they plan to actually fix this, what laws they would change, what they would do differently. Not a single point to that effect, just simply grandstanding about how the NRA is evil, we need to do away with them, and guns are bad, okay. That seems to be the only line that they ever peddle.
That's right. Not a single policy that has been proposed. And with this particular event, it came out earlier today as well, Brittany, that This event has been the subject of threats previously. I think at one of the other Madden events, there was someone who was out there. It was on, I think it was on YouTube, in the YouTube comments, or maybe they tweeted it out that they were going to shoot up the place. And they previously have had poor security. Other gamers were saying there wasn't any security here. I mean, just passing your hand around somebody's side, not even doing a pat down, that's not going to prevent anything. That's not a deterrent. No one wants to have that discussion either about maybe at some of these events where you're bringing out thousands of people, I don't know, maybe have some security there, particularly if it's going to be in a gun-free zone.
Absolutely. I mean, these are things that the NRA has pushed for a long time, that law-abiding gun owners have called for a long time. We actually have policy proposals. We actually have suggestions that we have made. Have security at these events. Enable people to be able to defend themselves by eliminating gun-free zones. Make sure that we have armed security. These are things that we have pushed for a long time. I think it's going to remain to be seen. This is a guy that lived in Maryland, came down to Florida. There's going to be details that come out in the future. Again, I'm assuming they're going to come out. The media might just drop this whole thing like a hot rock, but we'll certainly dig, on whether or not this firearm was obtained legally, where it came from, and whether the laws were followed. I mean, you saw, I hate to go back, but you saw all the way back in Parkland, CNN they dragged you up on stage and practically crucified you and wouldn't let you get a word in edgewise about actual policies that weren't followed, actual laws and rules on the books already that were not followed. And the minute that it came out that the Broward County Sheriff's Office had dropped the ball on just a huge slew of occasions, the media dropped that story. Nobody wanted to talk about that because they're not actually interested in finding solutions. They're not actually interested in stopping these incidents. They're interested in political grandstanding. That's why you hear about incidents like these, but you don't hear about Chicago, where 2006 people have been shot so far this year alone. Right. And they're actually calling that a victory because it's lower than this time last year. But you're not going to hear about that because awful. Chicago has strict gun control laws.
And you're not going to hear any more about that New Mexico terror compound either. People drop that like a hot potato. Brittany Hughes, MRC TV. Brittany, great to have you. I'd like to have you back. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.